It happened at my daughter's wedding. And I swear on the lace of her veil, if I hadn't looked twice at that glass, someone else would have been buried instead of walking down the aisle. But before I tell you what really happened that day, let me ask you something. Where are you watching this from? Your couch? Your bed? Maybe sneaking a listen at work while pretending to type? Wherever you are, pause for a moment and hit that subscribe button. Welcome to Voice of Mama Zee, a home for real, raw, unforgettable stories. The kind that hold you till the very end. Here, we don't tell ordinary tales. We tell the ones that make your heart skip, your breath hitch, and your mind whisper, "Wait, did that really happen?" Now come closer. Because this one is about family, jealousy, and a glass of champagne that nearly turned a wedding into a wake. It started beautifully. Too beautifully. The kind of day that looks borrowed from a movie set. The sky was a calm blue sheet. The garden shimmered under fairy lights even though the sun was still up. People smiled like happiness was contagious. My daughter, Lila, was marrying the kindest man I'd ever met. Daniel, a quiet, gentle soul who'd asked for my blessing 2 years earlier with trembling hands and honest eyes. For me, it was more than a wedding. It was a redemption story. After losing my husband, I had gone through a decade of rebuilding. Emotionally, financially, spiritually. Watching my daughter in that white dress was like proof that God still rewrites endings. And then, like a ghost wrapped in perfume and gold silk, Fiona appeared. My late husband's sister. The last time I'd seen her was at his funeral, where she stood beside the casket and whispered loud enough for me to hear. "She'll waste his legacy before the year ends." We never spoke again after that. So imagine my surprise when I saw her glide into the reception. Chin up, lips pursed, dripping in gold jewelry like she'd mistaken the wedding for a coronation. "Patricia," she called, spreading her arms as if we were long-lost sisters. "You look radiant. So brave of you to wear white. Not many mothers could pull that off." I smiled politely. "Thank you, Fiona. I see subtlety's still not your strong suit." Her grin faltered just slightly. I considered it my first victory of the day. But if I'd known what she had planned, I wouldn't have bothered with wit. I'd have prayed instead. Dinner passed like a dream. Music, laughter, clinking glasses. Guests gushing over the couple. My daughter's veil glittered like frost in candlelight. Then, sometime between speeches and dessert, Fiona appeared at my side again. This time holding 2 flutes of champagne. "One for you," she said sweetly. "The bride's mother should drink something special. Imported from France. I told the bartender it's your favorite." She handed me the glass. I noticed 2 things at once. The faint shimmer on the rim, like oil catching the light, and the subtle tremor in her right hand. The same one I'd seen years ago when she lied about misplacing my husband's documents. My instincts flared like sirens. "Imported, you say?" I asked. "From my personal cellar," she replied, pride blooming on her tongue. "Oh, Fiona, you shouldn't have," I said, smiling just enough to seem oblivious. I accepted the glass, lifted it to my lips, and paused. She watched me like a hawk waiting for prey to blink. Then my daughter called from across the garden. "Mom, come, we're taking pictures." Perfect timing. I smiled, turned toward Lila, and said, "Hold this a moment, dear. I'll be right there." I walked toward the bar, pretending to need a napkin, and quietly swapped the glass with another untouched flute sitting on the counter. Same shape, same color, same bubbles, only this one wasn't shimmering. Now there were 2 identical glasses. One real, one rigged. I turned, both in hand. Fiona stood waiting near the photo booth, smiling too wide. "Oh, let's toast first," I said brightly. She hesitated, just for a blink, then forced a laugh. "Yes. To family." "To family," I echoed. I handed her the one she had brought for me. She took it, clinked it lightly against mine, and drank half in a single, showy gulp. And in that moment my pulse slowed. My fear vanished. I didn't know what she'd put in it, and I wasn't sure I wanted to, but I knew one thing. Whatever she'd planned had just turned on her. The evening danced on. Music rose again. Lila and Daniel twirled under the lights like 2 people made entirely of joy. But Fiona's color began to drain. Her laughter grew strained. Her hand gripped the table. Then, a sound I'll never forget. The sharp crash of glass hitting marble. She swayed. Someone screamed. Fiona! A cousin shouted. Are you all right? She tried to speak but her words came out broken. Patriciaeshi. Her knees buckled. She hit the ground hard. The garden froze. All the chatter, the music, the joy, everything evaporated. Guests gathered in a circle. Someone called for help. The band stopped mid-song. And there I stood, champagne still in hand, calm as a still pond. Because I already knew. Paramedics came fast. The police weren't far behind. Weddings attract cameras, and when someone collapses, so do investigators. They questioned everyone, including the bartender. The lady in the gold dress, he said nervously. She asked me for a private bottle. Said it was a surprise for her sister-in-law. Told me not to touch the glass after she poured it. The officer looked at me. Did you drink it? I smiled faintly. No. I'm a cautious woman, officer. I let her do the honors. The next morning, the detective called. Mrs. Harper, he said, your sister-in-law is stable. The lab found traces of zolpidem in her blood. It's a sedative. A strong one. The same residue was on the glass she drank from. I exhaled slowly. So she spiked it, he finished, and swallowed her own plan. He paused. That's poetic, I suppose. Poetic, I repeated. And convenient. 2 days later, Fiona woke up in the hospital. When I visited, she looked like melted wax. Pale. Exhausted. But her eyes still burned with that same hate. You knew, she hissed. I did. You switched them. I did that too. Her lips trembled. You wanted to humiliate me. I wanted to live. Why couldn't you just let me have what's mine? She spat. I tilted my head. Because it wasn't. She stared at me, then laughed weakly. You think you're clever, don't you? No, I said. I think I'm still alive. There's a difference. Weeks passed. Rumors bloomed like weeds. Some said I'd poisoned her out of revenge. Others whispered that it was karma. The truth didn't matter to most people. But to me and to my daughter it did. One afternoon, Lila came over, her eyes red from reading online gossip. Mom, did she really? Yes, I said softly. She sat down beside me. Why would Aunt Fiona do that? I looked out the window, watching rain streak down the glass. Because some people don't hate you for what you've done. They hate you for surviving what they couldn't. She didn't ask again. By the time the investigation closed, the story had already become a local legend. The champagne scandal. The papers loved it. Family feud ends in poison panic. One headline even called me, the widow who outsmarted death. I wish they knew how little of it felt like triumph. Even survival can taste bitter when it comes with betrayal. 3 months later, I received an embossed envelope. Inside, a note written in Fiona's signature looping script. Brunch? No photographers. Just apologies. I laughed aloud. The nerve. Instead of showing up, I mailed her a silver champagne flute with one word engraved. Cheers. That was all the closure I needed. Or so I thought. One morning, her lawyer called. Mrs. Harper, I'm reaching out on behalf of Ms. Graham, your sister-in-law. She's transferring ownership of the late Mr. Harper's trust shares to your daughter. She insists it's time to end the feud. Out of guilt? I asked. Out of exhaustion maybe, he said. But she seemed sincere. I hung up and sat in silence for a long while. Maybe guilt was a slow kind of justice. Maybe the universe had simply decided to balance the scales its own way. Either way, the story that began with poison ended with paper, a transfer form instead of a eulogy. People sometimes ask me if I ever forgave Fiona. The truth? I don't think forgiveness always has to be said out loud. Sometimes it's just the decision to stop carrying someone else's poison inside you. I forgave her the day I stopped flinching at the sound of champagne being poured. Months later, at Lila and Daniel's first anniversary dinner, Daniel raised his glass. To family, he said. I hesitated, then clinked mine. But quietly under my breath I whispered. To paying attention. Because attention, my dear listener, is what saved me. Attention to a shimmer on a glass. Attention to the tremor in a liar's hand. Attention to the way envy always wears perfume too strong for the occasion. And you know what's funny? After all that, Fiona still sends me Christmas cards. She signs them with love. As if the whole thing was a bad joke we once shared. I never reply, but I do display them on my mantle, facing backward. A reminder that some people should always be admired from a distance. So that's how it went. My sister-in-law spiked my drink. I switched glasses. And she learned that poison never beats preparation. You want to know what I learned? That God gives warnings long before disasters. You just have to listen. Sometimes the whisper comes as a shimmer on glass. Sometimes it comes as a shaking hand. And sometimes, it comes as a voice inside you saying, "Don't drink that yet." If you're still here, you're family now. You've just finished another story with Voice of Mama Zee, where stories aren't just told, they're felt. Don't leave without subscribing, because next time, the story might sound a little too familiar, and you'll want to hear it before someone switches your glass.